how to prevent cancer naturally. With cancer being the #2 killer in the United States, you may have been wondering, how do you avoid that outcome for yourself? If that sounds familiar, then you are in the right place, because I am going to answer that question in today's video. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly Shockley, Doctor of Cause, Chiropractic, board certified in sports medicine, and specialized in clinical nutrition. In this video, we're going to be going over the #1 biggest lie when it comes to cancer. It's one we've all heard and no longer have to believe. Then we'll cover the most common mistake you're unknowingly making because you've been taught that this is the strategy for avoiding cancer and early detection. And finally, I'll be sharing with you the behind closed doors method for staying cancer free. Let's dive in. Now, what is the #1 biggest lie in regards to cancer that we've all been told and do not have to believe? It all has to do with genetics. What we've been taught is, if something cancer-wise seems to run in our family, then it's more than likely we're going to end up with that as well. And that it's your genetics that dictate all. We need to talk about genetics a little bit, okay? This gets a little technical, but I'm going to try to break it down, make it as simple to understand as possible, because it doesn't have to be overly complicated, okay? Think of your genes as a light switch. Genetic expression is something known as epigenetics, and it is this body of research that's really just come in line, probably not even within the last decade, less than that. What we're understanding is that obviously genes have expressions. Those expressions are whatever they're coded for. So if there's a breast cancer gene, that gene expresses breast cancer, right? Here's what we're understanding with epigenetics. Your gene, which is like a light switch, has the ability to turn on and to turn off. If the gene is turned on, so sticking with the breast cancer gene, then whatever that gene is coded for gets expressed. So this gene now is turned on. This person now expresses breast cancer. But we also know we can turn genes back off. So if we shift up what needs to be shifted and we create an environment that turns this gene back off again, the breast cancer is no longer being expressed. So what does this mean to you? Ultimately, what it means is, regardless of what your genes may say, you have control over what your outcome is. You're not destined to have the same family story. That your family history doesn't have to be your future health story. And guess what we're learning with epigenetics? What we're learning is, what facilitates that gene, that light switch being turned on and off, has everything to do with how you're living life. All the lifestyle factors, how you're sleeping, how you're managing stress, what food you're eating, what your exercise looks like. What are you being exposed to in your environment? And even though we can't live life in a bubble or perfectly, we don't have to. As long as we're doing more things right than wrong, we have the ability to keep these genes turned off, these light switches off, so that whatever they're coded for doesn't get expressed. So you actually have far more power and control over your health destiny than what anybody's been telling you. Now, I'm curious, did you think that cancer had a lot to do with genetics? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, what's the most common mistake all of us are unknowingly making, because this is what we've been taught, this is the order of operation? This has to do with how we are approaching preventative medicine within traditional medicine, within the standard of care that traditional medicine operates out of. The processes that they use for evaluating, do you have cancer or not, is by doing biopsies and scans and basing things off of symptoms. Let's stick with breast cancer, since this is what we've been talking about. Did you know, women by the age of 40, unless there's cancer in their history, they'll start earlier then, but women by the age of 40 are supposed to start having an annual mammogram. Mammograms themselves, by the time you've had 10 of them, you are exposing yourself to far more radiation than what it's worth. You're actually creating more risk by having this preventative measure performed on you. And then the kicker is, for a mammogram to actually detect that you have a lesion in your breast tissue that's concerning, that needs to be looked at, it's been said that that lesion has been growing for already 7 years. It has to be billions of cells in order for it to be detected. It is the size of the end of my pinky, guys, or yours too, before it can actually be detected. That doesn't sound very preventative to me. I know the earlier we detect a problem, the easier it is to fix it. Wouldn't you like to detect if your body is starting to lose a battle with cancer, like at first, like possible time, versus waiting 7 years down the road to be able to find it? And guess what? Mammograms miss things all of the time. Depends on the technician. It depends on the positioning, all of these other variables that go into that could make something actually be missed that's there. So what is our alternative to this? Well, they're not going to say it's FDA approved and it's not classically used in medicine yet because they're saying it still needs more research. I think there's another reason for this, okay? It's thermography. Now, you can do thermography scans of the breast tissue, but you can also do the whole body. And ultimately, what this looks at that's different compared to a mammogram, which is radiation and looking at imaging, we're actually looking at inflammation and blood flow. Let me tell you, in order for cancer cells to grow, one of the first things they have to do is they create their own blood supply. It's one of the first indications that something is growing in that area that shouldn't be. That is picked up by thermography. Thermography has been said to be able to detect cancer cells or the presence of this new blood formation when there's only 50,000 cancer cells present compared to billions. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like that will be a better outcome to find it sooner, right? Guess what? We also can run tumor markers or cancer markers. And we do in this country, but we wait until after somebody already has cancer. I run cancer panels on my patients on a regular basis. In fact, I recommend that everybody does it once a year so we can track and see what's going on with their body. Because again, the earlier you detect the problem, the easier it is to fix it. Other countries outside of the United States use these tumor markers as diagnostic, meaning they start there. But if you figured out that a person had cancer long before it was problematic, you could, not only would you detect it sooner, but there is this side of our healthcare system that's not very pretty. And this is not the doctors necessarily that are involved in it. It's the system. It's how it's been put together. For the 6 months of initial care for somebody with cancer, it's anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million. There's a lot of money to be made out of cancer. And unfortunately, it's bankrupting families. It's destroying lives. And they don't even tell you that, oh, hey, if you do everything we say, you can get 8 more years. Ultimately, what they're telling you is you do everything we say, in 8 years, you're going to be dead. And they don't even tell you those 8 years, what are they going to look like? Is the person going to be just stuck in bed, drooling, miserable, needing a diaper change? That doesn't sound like quality of life. There are other solutions for this. And part of it is being able to detect what's actually going on as soon as possible. Okay. I'm not stuck in the same, in their system because I'm outside of that. I'm not an MD, which is why I can run cancer markers whenever I want to. I don't diagnose cancer. I don't treat cancer. I test and take care of the patient as a whole. Now, before I get into the behind closed doors method for how do you stay cancer free, I just want to take a moment and remind you to click the subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and while you're down there, give me a big thumbs up. I appreciate that. I am producing videos for you on a regular basis, and I don't want you to miss out on a future one. These videos are all designed to help you be able to take back control of your health so you don't become a statistic and you can live a life that's full of energy and life and quality, because I personally believe that's why we're here. I don't believe we're supposed to be miserable as we get older at all. So these videos are designed to help you become unstoppable and achieve what I like to call total body mastery. So make sure you click the subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and give me a big thumbs up while you're down there. I appreciate your support. Okay, what is this behind closed doors method for staying cancer free? Well, I've kind of alluded to it a little bit already because this is my passion, guys. You have to figure out what is the current level of health. You have to be testing, otherwise you're guessing. Now, what do I mean by that? Because the medical world, thanks to the standard of care, whatever, they can do testing. But they can't do the same type of testing that I can because they're stuck to this aggregate of how this works and they have like everything's compartmentalized. As I mentioned, I can run cancer markers on my patients. And the panels that I run can detect upwards of 80 to 90% of all cancers that people can end up having. We are all fighting cancer every single day. But if our immune system is able to do its job, there's this system of checks and balances that kills off those mutated cells before they're allowed to proliferate or they're allowed to replicate and start becoming cancer. I have dealt with patients who have been diagnosed with cancer. And as I mentioned, I don't actually treat cancer. I treat them as a whole. I want to share with you a little story about one of my people. Her name is Mary. She's amazing. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, she was already kind of on this journey before she ended up with me, but we've continued the process. And ultimately, what we found out about Mary was there were different things going on within her body that weren't functioning the way that they should be. You know, the liver needed a little bit of help. The kidneys needed a little bit of help. There was a little bit of inflammation that was there. But we also look at more than just blood. We look at urine. We also look at hair. And in her hair, what we found out was her body wasn't really getting rid of any huge amounts of heavy metals. And this is kind of interesting because Mary worked at a water treatment facility. And there, to kill off all the yuck that's coming in, they use a huge amount of chlorine. Well, chlorine basically helps open up the pores of the body and allows you to absorb in whatever is in the atmosphere, what you're breathing in, what have you. She was being exposed to a lot of toxins at work. And even outside of that, the world we live in is the most toxic environment we've ever seen. You should see that there are heavy metals coming out of your hair because it's one of the methods that your body will use to eliminate them. Okay, it's one of the highway systems back out. She didn't really have anything happening there. And then we tested the urine to see, well, what is she holding on to? Or is she holding on to anything? And what we found out were extremely high levels of lead and high levels of mercury. And now she's got high levels of tungsten and barium. Like she's got all kinds of heavy metals that were stuck in her body. So what we've done with her is changed up her lifestyle, got some different, dietary factors happening, worked on what do you need to be using to decrease exposure to these things. And they're just simple little shifts, guys. It does not take a huge amount of time. It's not expensive. You just shift from one thing to the next and you've got it taken care of and you've reduced exposure. But then we've also been working at supporting her body to fill in the holes, to, improve the imbalances, to eliminate deficiencies, and then help her body get rid of all of the stuff that it's holding on to. So we're treating her as a whole. And we run those cancer markers. And lo and behold, her cancer markers continue to come down. And as long as they're going back towards zero, which none of us will be at zero, but as long as we're as close to zero as possible, we know we're doing a good job. We know her body's got that in check. So she's doing phenomenal. She did not go through any other crazy treatments. Okay. And she's doing great. Another lady who had end-stage breast cancer, had a double mastectomy, did not go for radiation and chemo, which the doctors did tell her, do everything we say and we can get you probably 8 more years. She was 48 and that didn't sound good enough. She had kids. So she used our method and every single week, her breast cancer markers were being ran. And the very first time they were ran, they were about 180. A breast cancer marker, the CA2729, should not be above a 35. Hers was at 180. Changed up her diet, got her going on some nutrition to help support her immune system while we were waiting for the rest of the results to come in, and retested that marker in a week. It had come down 40 points. Now we have results. She had extremely high levels of lead in her system. She had extremely high levels of exposure to uranium, though, that we found in her hair. And then other nutrient imbalances and deficiencies that were showing up through her blood work. Shifted her protocol to add in what her body needed specific to her results and continue the process. In another week, we retested that marker. It had come down another 40 points. In 2 weeks, it went from 180 down to 100. Fast forward, she's been on this journey now for 15 years. Her cancer marker has always stayed down in the ideal healthy range. The only time it slightly elevates, doesn't become clinical, but slightly elevates, is around Christmas because of a little extra stress at that time of year. And she's not quite as good with her diet as what she was. You guys, if she would have done what the medical doctors told her to do, she would have probably been gone already. They only gave her 8 years. And she's got 15 so far, and there's no like sign of that stopping anytime soon. And guess what? As I mentioned, 6 months of care on average for cancer is $500,000 to $1.5 million. Second patient, for her 6 months of care and all the testing and all the nutrition, is only $5,300. That's why this is not mainstream. We should probably change our healthcare system to be not profit. And I'd be really curious to see what like amazing capabilities we are actually able to implore with people and to save lives. And that's what this is all about. If you want to know more of how to, like, where can you have this testing done, or what does that look like, and why isn't my doctor doing this? I have you covered. All you need to do is go beneath this video into the description, click on it so it expands. Look for my 5-day health challenge that's down there. Now, no, it doesn't take 5 days. I've just giving you the information to figure out exactly what's going on with you, what's your current level of health, how do you create a plan that works on all of the underlying, so that like by the end of this, you know exactly what you need to do in order to stay cancer free. Okay. So they're just 5 smaller chunks of information, easier to absorb in small increments, right? So I hope this was insightful. Okay. I hope that it opened up your eyes a little bit to what's going on in our world. And just know that you have so much power and control over what your life looks like. All you need is to figure out what's going on, determine the underlying cause. Then you can actually have a proven solution so you don't have to deal with that any longer. And you can prevent these scary things that are so common in the United States. I appreciate you greatly. I can't wait to see you on a future episode. God bless.